to my first tutorial. I'm going to show you how to color in some of your line drawings. This is kind of a way for beginners who are just starting out using Photoshop to color their illustrations. This is a technique that I've kind of developed. I've gotten these ideas from other artists, and I've kind of put some different ideas together, and this is just a simple way for you to color your illustrations. So yeah, let's get into it. And you should be able to do something like this eventually. I'm going to show you how to do that. So first off, let's just start off with a line drawing. Your line drawings don't have to be this neat if you are going to fully render your illustration, but it helps when you're rendering. So the neater your lines, the cleaner your line illustration is, the easier it will be to fully render your illustration. I'm not going to show you me rendering it, because I'm not going to take this illustration all the way to full render. I'm kind of fine with it being kind of half rendered, and so I'll show you that. So let's see. Alright, so once you have like a nice clean line drawing, you're going to want to fill in your character. You can do that with a wand if all your lines are closed up, like if you have a neat outline. Sometimes my illustrations are kind of loose, so there's a lot of gaps, and I don't take the time to do that, so I actually just kind of do it by hand and fill it in. So alright, so I'm just going to get rid of all these and give us a dark background so you can see what I mean. So basically I filled in my character, and then I start painting in different sections. The shirt, the pants, boots, tie, jacket, hat, the gun textures, his gloves, pretty much everything. And you want, in this stage, you want to include any sort of fading to any of, pieces of material, like the pants. Like you can see, you can see that I added some fade here and some dirt at the bottom, kind of like he stepped in some puddles. I've faded his boots a bit. I've faded his jacket as well as his gloves. And this is also the stage where you want to add kind of any sort of change in color to someone's face. So for example, like the nose, when you're drawing a human or when you're painting them, the nose and the cheeks are usually a little bit more pink than the rest of the face. So in this stage you want to do those sort of steps. You want to add those different hues in, and you're not really worried about shading at this point. You're just kind of focused on hue change, but not the type of hue change that you get from going from light to dark, just hue change for when you have materials that are faded or skin that changes color because of just more blood vessels are closer to the surface. So just to get you a closer look, you can see the veins and the eyes. His face is, the idea is that I guess kind of his face is kind of bruised from this accident that he's had. This is a villain character that I'm working on. Okay, so once you have done this, you've filled in all your character, or all your layers and your entire character. You've added textures, you've added fades and stuff like that. You're now ready to basically condense all of these into one layer. So you would kind of take this, select that, and then compress them, Control E and compress it, and then you would have this one layer. And you want to copy that. You want to take this and copy it maybe like 5 times, because you're going to use that silhouette a couple of different times. For one, you will probably use it, let's see, what happened to my shadows? Oh well. Oh, there they are. What I was saying was that those silhouettes you can use as base shadows. Shouldn't be there. Let me actually move all of this right now. So basically, after you've compressed all those layers and you have a nice silhouette that's filled in, one of the things I do first is I will turn two of them using Control L, Command L levels. I'll turn them all black, and then using perspective, kind of stretch them out as if, and just kind of give him a base shadow going two different ways, because he's going to have two different sources of light, so he should have two shadows. And the way I do that is just through transform, Control-T, transform. Like I was saying, this is kind of a tutorial for beginners, so if there are any advanced Photoshop users out there watching this, sorry for going over those commands. The next step is shading. So like I said, you would take all these compressed layers and form them into one layer, and you would kind of repeat that, or copy those, turn two of them into shadows, and one of them you would turn into, you know what, actually I want to show you something else first before I go into that. Before I add my shadows, I do something else. I add a little bit of darkness to the bottom, because I'm going to have my light source is going to be coming from here, so I want there to be kind of a gradient down here, so I want it to be a little bit darker. And I erase the area around the boots because I want that fade around the boots to be visible. So that is a multiply layer at 70%. I just put some pitch black, multiply, and put the opacity down to 70%. And then this is kind of important because later on you're going to be adding highlights using a color dodge layer. And for this illustration, I made my light source a kind of light green, as if it was kind of a fluorescent light, and my rim light will be red. So what I've done here is added a layer of light green set to color dodge and 10%, so that everything is kind of unified and as if everything is being hit by this light. And I want that over everything. Next, so we have the shadow, we have that. And another thing I should say for this base layer, when you're creating all these other layers and you're adding your textures and your fades and stuff like that, and discoloration, you can add your highlights. I know I told you not to add shadows, but it's okay to add highlights to soft textures, because usually soft textures like the pants aren't going to have too much of a difference in hue change or value change. But things like the gun or his gloves would, because they reflect more light, and that's when you would want to use your highlights layer to add those highlights. But in the first step, where I was saying to kind of make your base colors, it's okay to add some highlights to soft sections like the jacket or the pants. You can kind of knock that step out in the first step. But then you will have a chance later on when we start doing highlights and stuff, like you can see there, to add more highlights. Okay, so we've got the base layer after we've copied all our layers and we've created our base layer. For anybody who doesn't know, what I've done here is I've hit Shift Command N. That's for a Mac. I don't know what the command is. I'm guessing it's Shift Control N. It basically gives you the ability to paint within your silhouette, within whatever exists before. So even though this is saying that it's everywhere, you only see what's inside of this character. Same with this layer. And I try to keep everything in folders so we stay organized. Alright, so next is the shadows, and this is where it gets a little tricky. So what I've done, I'm going to get rid of all this stuff real quick. What I do is I take one of those silhouettes. Remember, we made like 5 copies of it because we used 2 for the shadows and 1 for the base, and now we're using 1, and we just turn it completely black. We just set it, turn it black with our levels, turn it pitch black, and we just then we start attaching some layers. Don't worry about this layer mask right now. I'll get to that. And then we take another one of those silhouettes that hasn't been touched, and we just add, basically that into it, into this section right here. So again, you would turn that silhouette pitch black and then hit Shift Command N, and then that will give you the ability to take one of those silhouettes and drop it in. And this silhouette is basically all those layers that we made in the first step combined. It's just that's what you're seeing. So when I take it out, all you see is the black. And what's going to happen is by hitting this button right here, you will be able to erase the black and bring it back if you want. And what that does is, just kind of gets rid of the black where you don't want it. And it's kind of like adding your light. So wherever you erase is where you're adding your light. Let's see, make sure everything is on right here. Yeah, so this is on. So here this is our original layer. We just kind of throw it inside that kind of clipping mask. And next we put in a hue saturation channel that will only affect this layer. So when we do that, you can see there's a change there. So let me just click on that so you can see. So what I do, after I've pulled in this silhouette, this silhouette that we created from our base layer, from our base colors, and we put it inside this, black layer that we are manipulating through a clipping mask, we can set up a hue and saturation channel. And with that, we can darken it, we can change the saturation, and we can also change the hue, because when things go from light to dark, there is a hue shift. Usually things that get darker, I've noticed that the saturation builds a little bit, so you can affect that too. And I'm just going to show you. I can make it darker, I can saturate it more, I can desaturate it, I can shift the hue all I want, but I'm not going to keep that. So the idea behind all these layers, I know it can get kind of confusing, it gives you a lot of control. And if someone were to say, hey, this is cool, but I want his jacket to be maybe purple instead, all we would have to do is go back down to our base layer, change the color of the jacket, re-merge all these together, throw it back into the base layer, just get rid of that one, or save it, put it somewhere and save it, and then put the new copied layer into this too, and not even have to change to the hue and saturation, because usually this is the kind of settings that I usually stick with, a 26, 25. I don't get too drastic with it. So it gives you a lot of control. Next, after we've adjusted our hue and saturation, the next thing I do, I think I just made it darker. Now see, this is one of the silhouettes that we made in the early stage. I just made it completely black, threw it into this clipping mask, and I think it's set to overlay at 39%, and that's only affecting where the black layer exists. So if you look here, it's not really affecting that, but it kind of is, because the black still exists right there. So hue and saturation, and then these two layers were just really for his mouth. I wanted to make it a little bit darker where there's not much light getting in, and then those are set to overlays. And then this last one is a overlay layer. Just wanted to make his legs a little bit darker. I hope that's not too confusing. Next, we just do a rim light, and this is kind of important because I just learned this, and this will make a big difference when you're doing rim lighting. Double click on this screen, and before this layer and this layer were clicked, so unclick them, and you can set your color dodge right there, and then just hit OK. I'm hitting cancel because it's already set up. But what that does is it allows the layers underneath to kind of be seen through, and what happens is if you're painting, you know, this kind of pink light on top of your character over dark areas, it's gonna be different, because if you were to just paint pink all the way down, it doesn't make sense. The color underneath needs to kind of show through, and the color dodge and checking those two marks really gives that really cool effect. Just show you. So it looks like it's hotter up here and a little darker down here. And that's because of what I've done in the shadow layers by adding all this darkness. It gives this kind of gradient. Alright, so we've added our rim and also the highlights. Now the highlights, I just want to show you, these are my two colors for the light. It's this kind of light green and this pink. And the pink is strictly just for the rim light, and the green is kind of this overall light that I put over top of the base layer, and any of the green light, or for all of the highlights. So you can kind of see down here that this green is affecting. You can kind of see the green reflecting off of his shotgun. Alright, and yeah. And also, so I don't fully render these illustrations. I'm kind of fine with the way they're looking. I think right now it's set to, this line is set to normal 100%. I usually set mine to overlay, and then I drop it down to maybe like 70%. And it's still enough that you can make out, you can still kind of make out what's happening. If you took away the line, you can sort of, it's almost rendered. And that's the good thing about having really clean line work, is that if you really want to take it to the next step, this kind of process really helps you with that if you're kind of just starting out. There's some people out there who just don't have to do this, who are just amazing. I am not one of those people. So, once you are satisfied with everything, once you're satisfied with your base layer, you're satisfied with your shadows, the only thing you have to do with shadows is you're only adding white and black into this little clipping mask layer, and you gotta make sure that you're not clicked on here, but you're clicked right here when you're adding white and dark. And what that does, when you're adding black, you're actually erasing the clipping mask, and so what ends up happening, it looks as if you're adding light, and when you're adding white, you're adding back the shadow, and then all of these other things that you've put along with that shadow, along with that hue change. And that hue change, I think, really makes a big difference. Okay, so you've done your base, you've done your shadows, you've done your rim, you've done your highlights, you've changed your line. Once you're satisfied with everything, go ahead and save, and then go ahead and save into a new file. That way you can, if you really had to, you can come back to all of this. And here's, once you have done all that, in this file, I've kind of compressed everything into one layer. See, it's just one layer. And I've just gone around and erased everything that I don't need. Let me see. You can see here that when I compressed everything, for some reason, some of these things kind of showed up, but it doesn't matter because I just erased all that. I like to kind of go around my character and erase the dark lines that still show. If you are going to render completely, I recommend that when you render, my rule is if the line, let's say for example the line's here, I would just get rid of that. But for a line, let's say down here where the jacket is, instead of building out, since this line right here represents the end of the jacket, don't paint this line this color, paint it the pant color. So you would take this green, and I'll just show you, but I'm not going to keep it. Oops. You would paint it this color. Just kind of get rid of it, as opposed to grabbing this color. Because what ends up happening when you do that, things just start to inflate, and you don't want that. You kind of want to go in, or you want to just be mindful of what the line is representing. Same with this. Well, that's actually different. Actually, no. The rule still applies. I would just take this shirt. I would take this shirt color and just go into it. Otherwise, again, you're just inflating your objects. So that's pretty much it. I hope that was helpful and not too long. You can use this method. You can adjust it to however you want. You don't have to use these same rim color highlights. I like to either use like a light yellow light for lighting the character and then maybe a blue rim light, but you know, play around with it, have fun, and yeah, I hope that was helpful. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching.